Okay, so in the last video, we had a look at how we could do this top table here. So we modeled that up. So in the next video, in this next video now, we are going to have a look at how we create this underplate here, this blue section that we've just highlighted. And we're going to have a look at how we have a go around making that in sheet metal. So it's going to be something new. And we are going to put in the holes and the gaps for the bolts going through and how we create these flanges. So if you've not already subscribed to the channel, welcome back to Guide SolidWorks, and we are going to have a go at this. So let's get started. Now this underplate is going to be made in sheet metal. So I'm going to make sure I've got my sheet metal tab on here. If we've not got the sheet metal tab in the options, just right click on any of the tabs, go to custom. Let's do that again. Right click on any of the tabs, go to tabs, and then we can add in any that we want. So for instance, we just click on it to add it in. So I added surfaces in there, and that's added in. If I don't want them, go back to tabs, and I can unclick the ones that I don't want. So for instance, again, weldments, if I don't want that, I can get rid. But I want to keep the sheet metal on, so that's what we're going to be using. So my first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a sketch, and I'll click the front plane like so, and I'm going to draw just a line. So I'm going to click a line from my origin, pull it out like so. Now if I'm not sure if that's perfectly horizontal, I can click on the line, go to my relationships for that line and click horizontal, and it will pull it horizontal like so. I'm going to set a distance to that, and I want that to be 600 in length. So 600, like so. Okay, so once I've got that 600 in length, I'm going to go to my sheet metal section, and I'm going to create a base /flange/tab. So click on that there, and I'm going to pull this out. I can either drag it from the arrow, or I can just type in here the information that I want, which is going to be, 300. So it's going to be the same size as my underside of the base the top plate that I was using, the top of the wood that I was making before. If we go down here, we'll see some set information. So for instance, we have a sheet metal parameter, which is going to be 5 milli thick. It's automatically set that. For the sake of what we're doing, we'll leave it at 5 milli, but if you're working with, say, 2 milli, 3 milli, then you would change that, okay? We'll leave it at 5 for this. Bend allowance is set at 0 at the moment. That would not be the case. Now, you can work out your bend allowance based off an equation. I'm not going to mess around with that at the moment, but I'm just going to set in here a bend allowance in a moment. We'll leave that for how it is at the moment, though. I'm going to tick there, and that'll do that sheet. So I said I'll set the bend allowance in a moment. We've created this sheet. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the sheet metal little folder here, right-click on it, and I'm going to edit that. What that will do is it should allow me to set a bend allowance. So I'm going to click to set the bend allowance as a bend allowance, not a K factor. And then I'm going to set a standard bend allowance. I'm going to go 0.25. Okay? What that means is because it's in the sheet parameters, it will add that to every bend that we make on any piece of material as long as we use the bend allowance set in this sheet parameters. Okay, and tick there. So now it will use that. So if I double click on the flange and edit that, so I click on the flange and edit that, you will see in the bend allowance, it's not coming up on there. Sorry, I'll show you in a second when we do an actual flange on the end. So what we want to do now is we want to put some tabs or flanges on the end of this metal work, on the sheet work, to bend up around the edge of the table. So I'm just going to put some edge flanges on here, and I'm going to click that I want them on that edge. That edge. Oh, I've got to come back here. That edge. We'll sort out the height in a second. We also want them on this edge, and finally on this edge here. Okay. We want to set a height for them. So if I come down, at the moment it's set at 96. I'm going to set that at 12. I am going to make sure that my component, my flange, is actually, if we look at it, they're all squished together here. I want to make sure it's coming out from the edge and not from the inside. So if we look at these different options here, what this is showing is where it comes out from. So where we've got a dotted line like so, this would show that the flange actually starts inside the material size that we'd set. So this dotted line is the edge of the material side we preset. This one shows that the inner face starts on that. This one shows that the bend, just before the bend, starts on the edge of the material, which is what we are after. Okay, so we're after that one that's highlighted. So we just make sure. We go to our bend allowance, and before I showed you, we set our bend allowance at 0.25. You can see here that's pulled through straight into this bend allowance on these corners. So we know that we're good with that. That should do us. So we could set up a custom relief if we wanted, which would just show us a relief ratio on the corners, but we've got all that set up, so it's all custom. It's already preset into the information for it, so we don't need to mess with any of that information as long as we've got this all set up. So tick to show that we are happy, and it should pull through a piece of sheet metal work with the edges that are going to come onto our, which is going to allow our top to sit into. Now, this is all bent up. If we wanted to show this as a flattened out piece of sheet metal, i.e. a template, we can click flatten, and it will flatten that out for us, just to show us what it will look like as a flattened sheet of metal if we were to cut that before bending it. And click flatten again, and it'll pull it back up for us. Okay. So if you need any engineering drawings with it flattened out, we just click the flatten button, and we'll be able to produce an engineering drawing for that. Last bit for this is to put some holes on to put our bolt through. So let's do that now. So on this top face here, I'm going to go back to sketch, and I am going to create a slot here, and I'm going to drop that slot onto my sheet metal there. Doesn't matter how big it is. I am also going to drop a center line in from one side to the other, as long as it's in the center of my sheet. And I'm going to make sure the center of this slot is in line with that center line. So we'll just make them coincident like so. Now I also want a hole further up for my second bolt to go through. So I'm just going to grab that, drop that in there somewhere like so. And again, we'll sort the sizes out to this in a minute. Dimension tool. I'm going to sort this down, the radius out to this, which is going to be 12. We need it slightly bigger than our bolt, because our bolt's going to go through it, and I don't want it interfering with it. I'm going to get the distance from the center point over to the edge. Now this is important that we make sure we find the right edge. We want this edge just inside the bend here. So I'm going to click there, and I'm going to set that at 50. Okay, and then I want to set how far this slot's going to go across. Which in this case, this inside line from inner circle to inner circle is going to be 50 again. Okay. Then my circle over this end, we just want that to be 12, again for clearance for the bolt. And we want this to be set distance away from this inside edge again, so make sure we get the right one up to the circle. And we want that to be the same as on the last component, which is 320, like so. Once we've got them in place, we're going to cut them through. So features, and we're going to cut. That will make them into holes. And make sure we're happy that that's cut through. Okay. Once we've got that in place, I'm going to change the material. So I want to set the material for that. Edit material, and I'm going to just go steel, and I'm going to go carbon steel, sheet metal, basically sheet steel. So I'm going to use that top one there. Apply that, and then close. So you'll see again the colour's changed because we've got our material applied. File, save as, and this is the plate, underplate. So I'm going to grab that underplate. I'm just going to call it underplate 2, so we know we've got it saved.